Hello, everyone. Good morning. I have a question for you. So let me ask you a hard question. Is your team really clear on what you stand for as a leader? Or are you just highly visible but functionally vague? In today's marketplace, executive presence, oh, you may not be able to hear me. Executive presence is noisy. Everyone's posting, everyone's speaking, everyone's trying to be seen. But visibility without direction is just noise. And if your leadership presence isn't driving decision making or performance clarity, then you're not influential, you are just active. So today we're dismantling performative visibility and replacing it with leadership presence that actually converts. But before we go ahead and dive in, I want to bring up again the Leadership Intelligence Resilience Index, or you hear me referred to it as the LII. It is not about how others see you. It is about how you show up in your business, in the boardroom, or for your personal brand. So the information for that will be in the description below in the featured section under this episode, or you can go to drvernitaglenn-white.com/leader index. Welcome to the Remarkable Edge Live Series show. This is the Executive Power Series. I am, again, your host, Dr. Vernita Glenn White. I go by Dr. V, the Brilliant Solutionist and Master Recalibration Strategist for brilliance, authority, and precision. I am an executive advisor and leadership intelligence architect for high stakes organizations. I don't just coach or consult, I systematize transformation. So from education systems to enterprise teams, I've spent 20 plus years helping leaders close the execution gap and build intelligent ecosystems that scale. This show is where bold execution meets brilliant design, where elite professionals come to rethink leadership, realign performance, and build organizations that actually work. So if you are done playing by outdated rules and you are ready to architect results that drive revenue, retention, and real influence, let's get to work. So before I dive into today's episode, I want to just say I'm lifting up a prayer for all of the people who are out in LA. At the time of this episode, there have been riots in Los Angeles, California over the topic of immigration, where it's actually about illegal immigration, but you'll just hear immigration just spread out. Now, I'm not going to go into too much detail here, but I am sending a prayer those for on both sides, for the families and for the people that live there, who have nothing to do with this directly, but they're being impacted by the destruction of their communities. And the reason why I'm bringing this up, one, yes, I'm saying a prayer for all sides, but also if you are a leader, this ties in with this episode, because this is where your voice does come into play. Now, I'm not saying that you need to go out there and fly out to California and do all those things, but this is the time to where your voice really matters and where you stand up for your personal beliefs and let that be known throughout your company. And I want to make sure we emphasize both sides. Like, there are rules, there are laws, there are policies and procedures that we must adhere to, whether it's in the country, the state, the city, the company, organization. But then there's also the side of compassion and grace. And so we can't go on both completely opposite ends of the spectrum. There is common ground. So while we can still reinforce rules and procedures and laws, we can also remember the humans behind those who are acting on either side. There are still people that we are dealing with, and that's where compassion and grace comes in. And so as a leader, even in your own organizations, you could be 10,000 miles away from that, but there are still times where you have to reinforce something, and it may not be the most popular thing, but if it stands on your beliefs, and if it's there for the entire good for if it's there for the good of the entire company, organization, whatever it may be, you stand firm on that and be sure that you can communicate that with grace, compassion, but also remembering that you have wisdom and you are a leader. All right, so now we're back into the episode. You can feel free to comment your thoughts and questions and concerns down below as we continue throughout our episode today. So we're going to talk about the leadership noise problems. Here's what most executives don't want to admit. You're highly active, but your visibility is not quite landing with everyone. There are endless updates, there are quarterly town halls or quarterly town, meetings and things like that. And then there are a bunch of leadership newsletters, right? But what's missing is the strategic signal that tells your people, one, what matters, two, where we're going, and three, how their actions actually move the needle. So the cost for most business to business operations, or even if you're a entrepreneur or even an entrepreneur for a small business, you have to understand the misalignment in culture. You have to understand that it costs delayed execution. And then you have to understand that leaders who are present but unclear, you have teams that no longer care. And if you're wondering what's happening, these are some of the reasons why. So we're going to move into how your influence isn't just loud, but it has to be aligned. And let me be clear when I say this. Influence doesn't belong to the most vocal. It belongs to the most aligned. And yes, we've heard the phrase, the squeaky wheel gets the oil, but that can only last for so long. It's like, well, where is the wheel going? Once it gets the attention, where is it going? So you have to make sure that your visibility isn't just internal, but understand that it's not just external, but it's also internal as well. And here are some questions I want you to consider. What messages do your department heads receive when you're not in the room? And if you're like, well, I don't have departments, you can substitute this for anybody who's reporting to you. And it could be a virtual assistant, an executive assistant, anybody that is, that reports to you. Like I said, you are a leader over something, right? So think about these questions. So back to number one, what messages do your departments, or insert what's relevant to you, receive when you're not in the room? What culture do your team meetings reinforce? And three, what does your digital presence say about your execution power? And understanding that visibility that converts is rooted in clarity and not just content. So this is not about just throwing a bunch of things up on the wall and say, well, I posted something for today, or I posted something for the week. And when I say posting, it's not always just social media, but if you're a leader, you should have a digital presence. But it is about having the digital visibility within your organization. Again, strategic newsletters, strategic emails, and whatever blast that you put out, understanding that it's in clarity and not just for a check mark. I want to talk about this case study. I saw this as I was preparing, and the story, I think it's Kiran Mazumdar-Shaw. Okay, hopefully I said that correctly. So she is someone who's mastered how to do this. So in 1978, Kiran was trained as a trained brewmaster, rejected by India's brewing industry. So she pivoted, like most people do. Well, like most of us should do when we're rejected. It was like, well, it's not a no, maybe it's not a not now or not yet. So she founded Biocon in her garage with 10,000, I think it's rupees. I think that's their currency in India. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's it. But here's what made her more powerful. She didn't chase visibility just to be seen. Instead, she built the credibility, and that's the difference. You can be visible all you want to, which in most cases is a good thing, but you don't chase that. You build your credibility. So Kiran positioned Biocon with clear intention, affordable innovation, and biotech for all, and aligned her visibility with her mission. You can't get away from that. And her presence attracted a lot of global partners, and she was named EY World Entrepreneur of the Year. Not because she was everywhere, but because where she showed up, she delivered with clarity. And that's the visibility that actually converts. And that's the model leaders now, especially when influence is being mistaken for popularity. So I know that there are times where you may hear some popular people say, be on all the social media channels and be everywhere. And there is a point to that, depending on, how you want to show up and the things that you want to do. That's why everything I say, it has to go back and align with your vision and your mission, one for yourself and then for your company, your organization, or your business. So yes, you can be everywhere, but you can do that strategically, or you can just double down in one area and make sure that you're really clear. So there's no point of praying and spraying content and it's not rooted in anything. So you have to see what works for you. So I'm not going to say go everywhere and it doesn't align. I'm not going to say drill down and that doesn't align. So that's why it's important to understand your vision and mission and have strategic conversations. So here's one thing you can do when we talk about clarity. So I'm going to give you a clarity conversion model, a framework. I love frameworks. I think you can live by frameworks and just adjust them accordingly to what fits you. So the first thing is how to ensure your presence build momentum and not just noise. So step one is clarity of identity. People want to jump straight into the tactics, but you have to take a step back and look at the identity of yourself and then how and your future self for your organization, company, or business. So questions you ask yourself, what do you actually stand for? And that's why I brought up the situation at the beginning of this episode. You still have to take a stand on something. You cannot be like, oh, I'm just going to be in the middle, or, yes, I see both sides and I'm just going to stay in the middle. At some point, you have to take a stand on something. And then you have to ask yourself, is it clear in every room that I walk in, or even the rooms that I don't walk in? If my presence is lingering or hovering, is my identity clear? And what do I actually stand for? Is that clear? Step number 2 is strategic signaling. What are you reinforcing through language, your body, digital, and performance cues? So what if I look at something that you have, in a company newsletter or an email, what do I signal? When I see you show up in the room or on a virtual space, what are you signaling to me? If I have a conversation with you, so forth and so on. So you get the point, but these are the things you have to ask yourself. What am I actually giving off? And this is some self-awareness, some true deep dive self-awareness, because everybody can be wrong about something, right? And then step number 3 is influence infrastructure. Do you have systems in place to amplify your intent, or do people have to interpret your silence? You may be thinking that you're communicating clearly and effectively, but if everyone has to say, I think this is what they meant, or I'm going to go with this and hope that's what they meant, you don't want that to take place. So you want to look for systems to make sure that I said what I said and I'm clear about what I said, and there's no room for interpretation. So let me know how this episode is landing with you. Let me know if that framework about the clarity conversion model, it helps you in some type of way, especially with those questions. Like a lot of times I can give you steps to say, hey, go do this. But the true power is in that reflection of yourself of what you're currently doing, diagnosing yourself, and then putting a plan in place to fill those gaps. So all of this isn't about just doing more, but it is about making every move that you make matter. And this is about visibility that converts, and it starts with clarity, then strategy, and then influence. And I think a lot of times people go backwards, like I want the influence, or just give me the strategy, but then strategy with no clarity doesn't make sense. But you can have clarity and then a strategy, but if it just sits, on in your digital shelf help and it doesn't go out, then you don't have the influence. And we can break all of those apart and see how they cannot operate without each other for sustainability, but you need all 3 of them. So when you take the Leadership Intelligence Index, it is over 5 different areas, and it talks about your next move in those areas. And as soon as you take it, you will get detailed results about those 4 areas where you are diagnosed at each different level, and about your next step. So this isn't just about getting a score. It is going to share with you a plan about, oh yeah, I can move forward, and then I can go get some support in this area, or, oh my goodness, I have not been showing up in this area, and that's where I need to double down, or I've been doing great in all of them. But it's really great to have an outside view or perspective about what you're currently doing. So again, it's not about where you are. No, it will show you where visibility is misaligned. It'll show you where visibility is being misunderstood, and it'll show you where visibility is missing entirely. And then, like I said, what to do about it. Because we help executives and leaders build leadership presence that moves people, drives clarity, and deliver results. But you have to start somewhere. You don't just want to take everybody's strategy or to-do list and say, I'm going to apply this in what I'm doing right now, and you have no idea what's currently working, what's not working, where you're starting. So this diagnostic is very quick. It's 10 questions. It does at least give you a starting point to have a conversation either with me or with your team to move forward. So please take the diagnostic, the Leadership Intelligence Index. 10 questions, very quick. It is there to say, hey, you are here. This is where you need to focus, or you're doing great. You can continue to double down and move on with that. So either way, just take it, and so that you can have a conversation, the right conversation, not just a random conversation, but a right conversation, the right system, and then know that you're going in the right direction. So you don't need to be everywhere. As we wrap up this episode, I want to make sure I emphasize that you don't need to be everywhere. You just need to be strategically present where it counts. And again, that goes back to your vision and your mission. Where does it make sense the most? So you can be everywhere and not everywhere at the same time. You can be across all platforms and people still not know anything about your life. So I don't want you to think that this is all about exposing, your personal side on social media or within your organization. That's not about that. It's about being strategic and then understanding that influence isn't granted, it is earned. And the leaders who master visibility that converts, well, they don't just lead performance, they define the culture. All right. So I'm Dr. V, your host. And remember that this has been The Remarkable Edge, where presence becomes power. And make sure you comment down below and let me know your thoughts so we can turn this monologue into a dialogue. And I'll see you on the next episode. Bye for now.